So guys, first of all, just welcome. Thanks very much. We've done two of these. We've already done one webinar this afternoon at 4 o'clock, which was great. There's some great content coming out of that. And again, we're going to do a very similar one today, which is just running through the model, but a little bit more specifics and a little bit more in the detail of how the model works, and some really good questions on structure of the business, you know, what happens in some scenarios. So hopefully this session will be a really good way for those who may never have had an introduction to who CoCity is and what we do, to those who've been on a few times now and maybe just interested to get some more questions and information out of there. My one of the co-founding team members will be joining us a little bit late. He's just coming back from London. I've just got back myself. What I'll do is, before I introduce myself, Dal, I'm just going to pass over to you, buddy, if that's all right, just to give maybe a quick intro and then talk through Leo.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Dal Rye. I'm the investor portfolio manager for Leo Crowdfunding. So thank you for having us here. So we're here on behalf of CoCity. We are their partner in terms of delivery of this investment opportunity. Due to the FCA compliance regulations, financial promotions and collective investment schemes, the project is conducted through our platform to ensure FCA guidelines are met. Of course, our appointed principal partner, as you can see there, is Share Limited, who are authorised and regulated by the FCA.
Perfect. So what I want to do, guys, just to give you a little bit of an overview of how this session will go, if that's all right. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about who we are, what we're doing, and we'll talk a little bit about the model, what sites we already have, because that's a really big core component. What's the pipeline? What are we looking at developing? A little bit about the team as well, which I think is really important for the foundation. There's a lot of experience there. And then, you know, general information about CoCity and if this is right for you, how you can get involved and what does that look like. So hopefully that's all right for you. My name is Alex Impey and I'm the founder. I know quite a few guys who are on already. My background is all in engineering. I'm going to talk a little bit about that more, but it's my job today to hopefully give you some understanding about CoCity as a development business, what we're doing, which is completely different to the rest of developers in the UK and around the world, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and why we do that the best. So hopefully this is of use and is not taking up too much of your time this evening. So thank you very much. So I think the biggest key for us is always about why. Why do you do what you do, right? It's the eternal piece for every human. Why are we here? What are we doing? And a business without purpose is basically just a spinning top going round and round. And from day one, CoCity as a development company, we're really passionate about defining this North Star. And what we see there is a culmination of the 2 and 3 years that we spent with building, proofing our model, and trying to find how we create value for people. And we essentially repurposing how people live, work and play. And we're using the built environment, both residential and commercial, to do that and really generate value, not just in the pockets of you and I as investors in the business, but value holistically for the residents. And by generating this value and making life a lot easier to live, we'll create a lot more value in the longer term. It's about this brand and creating trust. And we built ourselves as CoCity around the premise of that living in today's modern society, in modern urban society, is freaking tough. It's hard work. And we were just talking about earlier that you only literally need to turn on a tap, flick a switch, and we feel the economic pain. We feel the physical pain from recovering from COVID and having everything else. It's not just economic, it's not just socially, it's environmentally where we are. It's the non-stop 24/7, you know, lifestyle from the social media side. It's hard. It's not tough. It's not easy. Sorry. And we wanted to create living not just as a house, not just as the work and the social context, but looking at lifestyles in total and creating a lifestyle-focused living that then meets today's society. Because we feel that developments right now do not do that, and they do not cater for what we need. How we're doing and what we're doing is very simple. We are partnering with local authorities, And we are looking to repurpose failing and underutilized real estate right across the UK. And that could be land, it could be buildings, existing building stock. And we're turning them into our bespoke, low carbon, community centered live, work and play experiences. That might sound like a mouthful, but we're going to talk about what community centered live, work and play is, so community centered flexible living. We'll talk about this model shortly. But what is a real drive is moving forward around the low carbon piece. Now, we take sustainability, and sustainability has many forms, from people, places, and planet. And we don't talk about like, okay, we're a sustainable developer. That should be front and center of every business, not just from the built environment, but from everything. And so we just try and bring what we can to the table and leverage and do that the best. And so we work with partners from the built environment, from the operating side, who want to contribute to that. And it's our model to take that failing real estate and look at how we can take it on that journey through this net zero transition to 2050. And one thing that's really important to know is this year we went to a property event in Leeds. And for those who know the property events across the UK and beyond, MIPIM is obviously one of the kind of benchmarks in France and Cannes. This is like a second equivalent. And we went to this one in May and June. And it was basically all the great and the good of property, from local authorities to big developers to funders to service companies. And the whole thing was about, how do we rise to the challenge as a built environment to get to this net zero? And just as to give you a bit of context, 25 to 45% of, 25% of global emissions is caused by the built environment, which is residential and commercial. That's a huge amount. And that's basically down to steel and concrete. Concrete is one of the worst offenders ever. So how do we take this horrible carbon polluting, industry, and we can try and make it better and improve on it? And there was a government think tank which said that to do this work, to get the built environment to net zero by 2050 and 2045 in Scotland, it's going to be like £3 trillion, which could rise to maybe 9 to 10 trillion. And this is the start of that market. It's a massive market that we're positioning ourselves in a sub-context to really take advantage of. And I think that's really important to understand. It's not just the low carbon piece. That's part of our model. That's an identity, taking these buildings with embodied carbon savings, repurposing them, keeping the foundations, keeping the structures, and then creating something new. It's not just that, but it's about creating that community-centered approach and bringing people this holistic lifestyle together. And so we chose local authorities because we knew that our model fits their mandate. We're speaking to 29 local authorities right now. Well, we have done, and we've narrowed that down to 5 key critical local authorities who are proactive, got a great understanding from a planning perspective. They want to build something new. They have assets. They are ready to partner and want to do something different. And that's where we've positioned ourselves to take advantage. So hopefully that kind of explains a little bit about the why and the what and how we're doing it. What I just want to share is to kind of maybe just pare this back. Obviously today it's an information sharing exercise. Myself, Pete, who will join, and Dal, we want to give you as much information about CoCity as you can in half an hour. It's a little bit of a speed dating exercise, so hold on tight. But at the same time, we are looking to raise, and we're in the middle of our raise, which we're hopefully looking to close at the end of September. But as a highlight for what you potentially could get, I want to show you this. Now, I think what's really important for us is, and for myself, is you guys as potential shareholders, if you do decide to come in, become an investor and a co-owner. And Warren Buffett always says that when you buy stocks, you actually become a business owner. And that's essentially what you do. And we welcome that. We want people to be part of this journey, to benefit on this potential success stage. And to do that, we're selling 8.2% of the business for 1.3 million. And we're doing this in a couple of tranches, but this first tranche, which was offered, is the only public facing that we'll be doing right now. We don't have any plans for any other raises other than a professional raise, which we're speaking to professional entities on. What's one of the, along with the potential upsides, which we'll talk about on this. When you become part of this business and a shareholder, you always get the ability to invest in any of our future deals as well. And that means the equity on real estate deals. So we might have specific projects, it could be just for a year, it might be 6 months, a year, 18 months. We will always give you front and center opportunity to invest in them before anybody else. As an example, I can divulge this because this was a previous investment. One of the ones we've just been doing, we give the investors first dibs on this. First dibs, that's a very professional term, but they got the first option on this, and the returns expected to be delivered were circa 25 to 30%, and that was over an 8-month period analysed. So, you know, there's some potentially good opportunities there, and we want to be able to reward those guys who have invested with us with these items first. And on top of that, there's the CoCity Founders Club, which was really created just around those first initial founders who come giving us their trust, and we want to reward them. We've got founders whiskey sessions, tasting sessions up in Scotland. You guys get bottles and be part of, you get all of the news, you get to be at our events, as well as all of the other opportunities for investment, both within the CoCity development and the wider group. We were really strong on risk mitigation and exit for our investors as well. So this is an asset-backed investment. We own property. As you can see there, we've got a pipeline that is being constructed as we speak. So we're not just talking the talk, we're walking it as well. You know, 2 million plus, GDV of 22 million, and we're hoping that will grow even more this year as we bring in new pipeline from our pipeline. And I think that the returns are really important to note here, because we're looking to potentially provide, or investors looking to receive, up to 7.4 times return on their initial investment from year 4 onwards. And that's not 7.4%, that's 7.4 times. So hopefully you guys understand that, okay? And on top of that, the investors could also receive annual dividends of 4% up to 7.5% from year 4 onwards. Now, hopefully I've explained that well, but on top of that, the mitigation piece is that within our business and our articles, we mandated as a board to give an exit opportunity. And that exit opportunity will be via a capital event, most like a refinance or share buyback, and that will happen at year 4, because we realise not everybody wants to be putting their money in forever. We do realise what happens in this world, pressures of living in a modern society. You know, you might need to go and stock up your fridge, you know, buy a new place, cars, all of that kind of stuff. So we wanted to create that exit point, and that will happen at year 4 onwards. And that was kind of a big mitigation piece from ourselves, and something that we wanted to make sure our investors could receive from. And the last point was just talking about the previous investment round. We did a loan note in Q1, which was really successful. We raised £650,000, which is a little bit more than we expected. But that's a great sign of people and confidence in what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. So hopefully that was all right for you guys.
Alex, if I can just highlight, just to basically illustrate where that would be. So if it's a minimum £10,000 investment, 7.4 times, obviously £74,000 potentially is what's on offer here after 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. If you put 100,000 in, it's 730,000 that you would potentially get back, including your initial capital. There is a couple of examples of this which we can show later on, Dal, which maybe highlight that a little bit better. And it's also in the equity offer document as well, so you can see that. Welcome, Pete. I appreciate, mate, you've just got back from London, so I'm not asking you to put your video on just yet. I'll let you do your hair, get it blow dry.
I'm good. Put the right camera on, that helps.
No worries. We got maybe the black screen is better than the actual camera, but there we go. Perfect. So Pete, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself? I know we'll crack on with the rest of it, but it'd be good just to intro yourself.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Pete Craig. I'm one of the founding team at CoCity. I look after community partnerships, but my background is in business. So I've been a business owner, operator, and manager for over 30 years now, in as many different industries as you can imagine, both pre-internet and post-internet. yeah, and a lot of that has been, a lot of those businesses were built around partnerships. So that's kind of the area that I work a lot in. So that's building partnerships with local authorities, with commercial partners, and also with our investment partners and our community as well.
Perfect. So I think I mentioned before, like, key for us was actually having live projects that we had under ownership. We'll talk about the hub and spoke model shortly, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that. But just to show you what we have live, we've got a project in Aberdeen, which is a great example of this community-centered flexible living product, and we're going to again talk about this shortly. And it includes apartment, it's the mixed-use living that we're looking at, from social housing through to home ownership. It's got bar, cafe, gym. It's all focused around the resident and creating maximum value. That is owned. We've got planning in place. We have all the building warrants. The tenders we're just finalising, because we have to do a bit of VE work with a couple of the contractors, and we're hoping that this site will go to construction by Q4 December time this year. Bit of work still left to do, but yes, we're looking forward to getting this to site. And then we've got Norwich House, which is in Guildford, currently a joint venture project, but we've got some great plans in there of initially 13 apartments, which potentially could grow to more, depending on what happens and the strategy with that, which we're just finalising. Fingers crossed. In the thought process right now is we're just working with the contractor to get them on site at the end of this month or at the start of next. So as you can see, these projects are now being built and moved forward. And this one is right in the centre of Guildford. It's a fantastic location, which is what we call our hubs. So I think the real key here is about explaining why our model is unique. And Pete, I don't know if you just want to jump in here, because I want to grab a quick drink of water.
Sure.
Just throw you in at the deep end and explain what it is.
No problem. So yeah, in order to fulfill what it was that we wanted to deliver, we had to create a new category of real estate, which we call community-centered flexible living. And that's built around the idea that what we wanted to deliver were spaces that allowed us to live, work, and play without having to travel miles and without having to, have completely separate places that we go to. So as essentially we could, we could live, close by to the place that we work and have access to work. And the way we work has changed dramatically over the last 2 years. And it might seem that this model is a model that kind of fits in with what's just happened, but actually this is a model that has been in development for about 4 years, and we were well ahead of the curve. And now it feels like we're right on track with the way that things are changing. So essentially, when we look at living, the home is the important piece. And one of the things that we notice is that more and more people just focus on, or developers just focus on, building houses. What we wanted to create were homes. And in order for those to become homes, it was super important that they were available and accessible to everyone at any point in their life. So you weren't restricted from buying a house or buying an apartment in an area that you wanted to, just because you were on hard times at the moment, or just because you were only kind of 20 years old and you didn't have a huge deposit yet. We wanted people to be able to still get into the communities and live in the places they wanted to be able to live. So all of our spaces are mixed tenure models. So that means that if you you've just come out of university and you've just got your first job, maybe you want to experience co-living, and you want to live with a bunch of people and see what that's like. And then in a couple of years' time, maybe you've just landed your dream job, and now you actually want your own space, your own apartment. Well, you don't necessarily want to have to move away completely from the community that you've been building up for all of this time. So we wanted to make it possible for people to move in and around the CoCity ecosystem as their life journey evolves. And that's what we refer to as kind of flexibility, so tenancy flexibility or resident flexibility.
I just want to say I'm so happy that Pete said homes and not houses. So I bang this into the team all the time, because in real estate we could talk about units, and units are so soulless, and we're not building units here, we're building homes for people. And as soon as you change that kind of that grammar and the contextual language, it means a lot more, and people understand and build, you can build that trust. So I'm glad Pete said homes and not houses. That's like our little slogan: homes, not houses.
Yeah.
Digress. Sorry, mate.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, and then another. So these really are kind of all the three big areas of our lives. The next piece is work, and as we just alluded to, work has changed dramatically over the last 2 years, with more and more people working from home, more and more big companies, starting to realize that actually people need to be able to work flexibly. But at the same time, after 2 years of doing it, not everyone wants to sit in their own front room or on their kitchen table working all the time. We still, as humans, we crave connection and we crave variety. So what we wanted to create in the work element of this were office spaces, flexible spaces, co-working spaces, and just spaces that you can just go and sit down, have a coffee, do some work. Maybe sometimes in the week or the month, you actually want a proper office. So we want to be able to create spaces where you can actually just rent for a day. So thinking about the co-working model, but much more flexible than that as well as creating event spaces that allow people to really showcase what it is that they do. And this is all part of what community is about. It's about allowing people the space to connect and showcase who they are, and get to know each other. Which kind of brings us on to the last piece, which is the play piece. And again, so many friendships, so many relationships are built around the activities of play, that's a crucial piece, and it's a big part of life. And play can include anything from going to the local cafe bar, to cycling clubs, to like gym life or wellness classes, mental health. There's a whole gamut of things that fall under what we might call play, and we wanted to be able to support all of that as well.
I think that's it. It's that holistic approach. And the whole point of this is we create this space for people to live, work, and play, but we then operate it, and we're not there to force amenities and activities on people. So it's not going to be like, okay, now it's your yoga session, and now you've got to have fun time with your mate, and now you've got to life draw your pal. It doesn't work like that. We want the residents to tell us what they want. It's their story, and Burning Man's a great example of this. How do you make a successful community? Well, you create a story, but you let everyone else then finish it off. And that's what Burning Man does so well. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we create the narrative by building the space, but then these guys finish it, and we want them to do that. That's when you get buy-in and you really get something special. And we're just there to kind of facilitate and create a platform that allows people to do what they want to do and be the best that they want to be. It's not to say that we're going to drag them up. People don't need that. They don't need the hand. They just want the tools themselves to do that.
Yeah, I think a really nice way to look at that is, imagine we're essentially creating the canvas on a piece of art. We're creating the canvas, and we've drawn some basic lines and some shapes, but then we want you as residents, we want our residents to bring the color. And I think that's the way I like to think about what it is we're doing here when it comes to community.
I'm much more artistic than I'm just an engineer, right? So I think of building blocks. Can't think of anything outside of that. So as I mentioned before, this is the development engine. So this is the development vehicle, the structure that we're looking at. And we've got 3 product models that we are building. We've got 2 under ownership. You've seen them, the hub and the spoke. And we're also creating a village. And we'll just quickly touch on that and why. And essentially, COVID has changed humans' social mobility patterns, something crazy. And we are creatures who love city spaces. For whatever reason, we love being packed in as sardines. It's just in our nature for some reason. It's comfort, most likely. And obviously, from an economic perspective, the cities provide that security. It's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But we are moving away still from those city spaces, and not everybody wants to be there. So what we wanted to do was create this hub and spoke model, which allowed people to make the most of the city from maybe a work side, from a play side, but from a living side, they could be much more out of town, more amenity space, etc. So the hub is very simple. It looks at a vertically integrated piece. So you've got food and beverage, you've got your co-working and a PRS or rental piece, and you've got that space all together. It's very compact, maybe 5, 7, 8 minutes from a tube, a main rail station, a bus station, where people can all visit. It's a flagship. And then we've got our spokes, which are maybe midtown locations, a bit more sprawling, more green space, more amenity, opportunities to get maybe out to the countryside, better links outside the city, but you can still commute maybe within 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes into the city. So you've got that connection. And then we've got the village, and the village is this 15-minute city context, which is creating hyperconnectivity, everything you need within a 15-minute journey by foot, preferably by foot, but also by bike. And this comes from Carlos Morenos. So Google him, he's a really cool guy. And there's a lot of cities around the world that are looking to implement this. And what we're trying to do this is maybe on a little bit of a smaller scale within a city, but create the blueprint of how cities can expand and develop at a much larger scale. So villages, you know, with maybe talking 4, 5, 6, 700 plus homes, along with the experiential commercial that goes along with that. Spokes maybe 40 to 100 homes, and you know, hubs maybe up to 50, so something along those lines. But the village is really a cool space, and we're working on 2 right now, which hopefully will be part of our pipeline, one of them this year, and to really demonstrate how CoCity model can fit in a bigger space, so mixed use on a much larger scale, and this mixed tenure piece. And then we already have the hub and spoke, which, like I said, we're already building out this year. And do you want to add anything to that, Pete?
No, I think that's a great summary of all of those.
I just realised I didn't answer the question. There was a question from my pal, from James, and he said, "How are you managing fluctuations in cost and availability of raw materials?" Really good question. As you know, cost of living and cost of everything from a building perspective, from a built environment, is mental, and that's forced us into some really innovative thinking about how we value engineer our sites. And the truth is that we have to work to budgets, right? Because the banks fund us. It'd be great if we could just do everything we wanted, but you've got to hit certain hurdle rates. So to do that, what we're doing is to kind of counteract that. One of the reasons is we're working with local authorities is because they have assets, and they're taking a different approach. Maybe it's not a short-term financial approach, it could be a lot longer term, but also they're motivated by more socially orientated goals and KPIs and the value from that. And our model does that in abundance, along with the low carbon and the live, work and play. So we targeted that to say, okay, well, maybe if we can't pay market rates, but we can add a lot of value longer term, and we can still provide some short-term value, we can maybe offset some of this cost increases, but also do something that's a lot better. So that's one way we look at it. And the second way as well is the contractors we work with. So we've got an MOU in place with the tier 1 and tier 2 contractor. And the whole point there is about working to design and build, so fixed price lump sum contracts, where the design risk and the build risk goes onto the contractor as opposed to us as the client. Ultimately, where we want to go though, James, is we don't want to be having to develop all the time. That would limit our growth. So we are creating the blueprints now. We're refining that with with the products we've got and what we'll do over the next 3-4 years. And then we'll create a blueprint which we can get other developers to do, and we're just taking as an operation piece. So we will get a fee, almost like a franchise fee for the blueprint. We may get some management fees on top, and then we'll take it on at the end. And that then really creates true scale and reduces risk from that side. There's obviously other things that creates, but that's the ways we're trying to achieve that. So I think I always say the same thing over and over again. I must have said it about 20 times. I said every slide I've probably said about 20 million times now, but this one, I was always told from a real estate development perspective, your business is only good as your pipeline and your team. Because if you don't have a strong team who can deliver and execute, and you don't have a pipeline, you've got nothing. Because essentially, it's the pipeline that feeds the beast, keeps the projects going, brings in the cash revenue, and the ongoing revenue as well. So we've got a couple of large projects on the go. We've got 2 village projects that we're looking at. This is some master planning that we've done, so you can see the kind of the level of what we're trying to achieve here, which is this mixed use, mixed tenure, experiential real estate in the heart of a city. We've got another one up in Dundee as well, which is a really cool opportunity. We're just doing the master planning on that, which is 400 homes. This one's 700 plus. And with that one in the one in Dundee, we're looking to hopefully partner with the council and do something really cool there, because I love our model, and it's a really innovative city who's trying to expand what they can offer. And then on top of that, we've got some of the smaller hubs and spokes. We've got quite a few, not just what we've got there. This was what was approved, but we've got sites in Kingston. We've got sites in Dundee, as mentioned, in Glasgow, and then we're looking as well as additional sites in Birmingham, in Bristol, alongside the local authorities in there. So our kind of pipeline, it says at 302, but it's probably closer to 352 million at the moment. This was always a problem for us because it's always been an issue until maybe the middle of this year about having enough resource to execute. And that was why we did the fundraise at the start of the year, is to bring in some more resources. So we brought in a financial analyst, which you'll see in a minute, to help us appraise these deals and actually move them through the pipeline into the position of being able to purchase and move forward. So we're able to now act on a lot of these deals and actually move those forwards in a way that we couldn't do before. We still need to grow. We still need more resources to be able to really execute and ramp up, because otherwise our curve, you know, it'll go, but it's much more flat, and we want to build up like this. And that's why we also want to work with local authorities to support that. We'll talk a little bit more around that shortly. Another point here is, Peter, well, maybe you want to talk around this, because I know you did a bit of work on, you know, with the partner and the local authorities, etc.
Sure. So, I mean, I think Alex has Guy pointed this out before, but yeah, it might on first look very random, you know, the places that we've identified here, but there was some research done behind this, because typically what we found is that our demographic, and it's not exclusive, but primarily those people that are interested in the type of development, the type of homes that we're creating, are those that are between the ages of like 18 and 38, 18 and 40. So what we then did was we did a whole bunch of research on cities that have large demographic of that age group with, you know, with aspirations or with income. And yeah, in many cases, these are, you know, towns and cities that have, you know, a growing younger population. And in many cases, there are certain skills in those areas that perhaps that perhaps are typically being attracted into places like London and other kind of central hubs, you know, where again, you know, what we're offering would be of interest to them, because they want to stay where they've grown up, they want to stay where their friends are, but you know, the opportunities for work and the opportunities for quality accommodation mean that quite often they move away.
Yeah,
so,
Pete, I think that's a massive point. You know, Aberdeen's a great example of that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They're trying to prevent the brain drain. They're going through a transition, an energy transition in industry, but you know, they want to keep that young workforce in and not lose them to Glasgow, London, Edinburgh. But they don't have the real estate around it to supply it, so they don't have the quality of homes, don't have the quality of nightlife, don't have the quality of living that they need to kind of keep those people attracted and living there. And that's not just Aberdeen, that's quite a lot of cities you see, as you mentioned.
Exactly. So yeah, all of the sites there are all sites that kind of met that criteria from our perspective, for our model. And it's funny that, you know, when Alex and the team attended the UK Reef, which is like a UK version of MIPIM, but for, you know, primarily like councils and local authorities, most of those cities and towns that are listed there had representatives at that event, and yeah, a large number of them approached us and said that they loved, you know, the model and wanted to talk further. You know, so the research that we did has kind of like fitted in quite nicely with actually what's what's happening at a governmental level and at a local council level, where they're being kind of forced to go down this path of kind of net zero, the net zero strategy. And they're also being forced to look at, as a result of COVID, look at how they stop the issues that large companies moving out of big offices is having on their town centres.
Yeah, and we're focusing. We work with a company who primarily focuses in public-private relationships in the built network environment. So they have really good connections with established local authorities. We've done some initial research about which are the top 5 local authorities to work with and cities that are proactive in what they want to do, their energy strategy, their provision on community-centered living, this model, and have assets. And we've now narrowed that down to 5, which we're focusing on over this next year or two to build out. And the key here is that ideally what we'd love to achieve over the next 5 years and beyond is to create a hub and a spoke in each of these 16 cities, where you then create this network effect, and that network effect proliferates, so that no matter where you go, if you live and work in Glasgow, you've got a conference, or you need to move to London or Manchester, you can essentially go into CoCity. You should be able to do some flexibility change on your tenureship, because that's what we provide. But more importantly, you've got a home where you feel at home. You know the culture, you know the people. Okay, they're different, but you can fit in, and you can get in there. And that's the point that we want to do. These co-citizens is what we call them, all of our residents. You can move around, and right now it's UK, but you can obviously see the benefits as you grow and grow, what this can mean from a further expansion piece. So I think, we're on to the last couple of slides here. The piece de resistance is Mr. Pete Craig there in there, and myself, obviously. No, this is our team. And I think really what you guys should take away from this is that there's a hell of a lot of experience that this co-founding team, the 4 that you see here, have got between them. And myself, I'm a chartered mechanical engineer, and I've worked all over the world, building, constructing, supervising, managing large-scale infrastructure in really hostile locations. Last project I did was in the Middle East with a joint venture with the government, and that was a £300 million project, which had all kind of elements of industry in there: civil, residential, petrochemical. And my job was always about managing risk and delivering. Karen, who's our head of development and MD, she's a fantastic acquisition. She came in last year, and she worked as head of development of Crossrail, of HS2, Heathrow Terminal 5 expansion, Manchester City Airports, has built big mixed-use developments up in Scotland, and as a chartered surveyor also helps bring another level of depth there. Philip, he's worked for various big corporate entities in the real estate world as a CFO. Worked for the Edmund de Rothschild Group, which is a massive business in its own right. Got a huge amount of experience in this, and again, it's a great piece to see that the level of experience who've decided to come in and work with us, which shows you the trust in the thought process of, well, CoCity and its model, it's going somewhere. We want to be part of that, and we want to help that. And as I mentioned, Michael, we brought him in recently in June, July, and which was to help with getting it through, building our model, this specific live, work and play model, but then, going through the sites, doing the due diligence and moving that through the pipeline. And then finally, we got our ambassadors, which are kind of like the non-executive directors, I guess. There's a few more than this that we're just kind of putting in place. I should probably update this now, but we've got Mark and Brendan who work on local authority side, who work on the community side. We're looking at the operation side, and we're looking at the kind of built environment side. So in total, we have about 3 or 4 that we're just finalising with, and they help us open those doors and opportunities, and together we make that team. I'm not sure if there's anything else. mentioned yourself already. So I think that's
I think that was a good summary of everyone's skills.
So, Dal, do you want me to talk about this? Do you want to?
Yeah, so no, I can go through it very quickly. So with regards to investing into this project, it's a fairly straightforward process. The link will be provided either via the chat and also emailed separately to anyone that's attended. It's an exclusive raise, therefore you can't access this project directly through the Leo platform. It's a simple, quick registration process. There's a questionnaire, about 6 questions or so, just that will allow you to be then investor ready. I would encourage anyone to kind of read the risk warnings before you answer those questions. You'll upload for AML purposes identification such as a passport or driver license. That will then allow you to actually pledge onto the actual project itself. That's then, as I mentioned, a pledge, which means you're not committed as yet. So of course, eventually you will transfer the funds, but more importantly, a shareholder agreement would be sent out to all of the investors, which of course you can download, read, and once you're happy with that, and then accept, and that then commits you to the investment itself.
Yeah, and you know, this particular raise itself, it is going to close at the end of September. That's the anticipated piece. You know, I was quite open on the last session, and you said we had a bit of a 2-week hiatus, which was unfortunate because it was end of August, which is the worst time anyway. You know, everyone's away on holiday, but we also had a project which was completed and gone to site, so we've had to spend a lot of time supporting on that, as you can imagine, which is obviously good because you want to know that we're building, we're not just talking about it, we're actually building these things, and now we're going to push this to a close in the next 4 weeks, which we're very confident on because of the level of interest coming through right now.
Absolutely.
So I'm just thinking, Dal, obviously we've got some questions there.
Yeah.
Do we want to go through those and then we can talk about how people can get in contact, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So some investors have reached out to me directly. Again, you can either email myself or Alex or Pete for that matter directly, or via the forum on the platform. So first question I've got here, I understand that investors in the top co are also have the opportunity to invest at an equity level in CoCity future deals. For clarity, does future deals mean real estate projects that fall under the top co, or future equity raises in the top co, or both?
So I think that's a great question. I know I got asked earlier. And what we are doing, I just wonder if I can quickly go to the appendix. So this is just so you can understand the structure a little bit. I appreciate it might seem really confusing, but essentially everyone who's invests in CoCity Holding at the top, which means you actually own a piece of the pie of everything, which is our property, holding assets, which generate rent, as well as the developments that own the specific assets in the developments, which generates the big cash, and the development vehicle itself, which generates management fees, right? So you're going to sit at the top here. Now, when you invest in the business, what you automatically get, and I explained this right at the start, is that we will create a small group and as the founding team, you will always have an opportunity to come into any one of our future projects. So if we're going to build a new hub model in Manchester and we're going to raise £1 million, and in that, you know, there's a potential for 25 to 30% equity return. This is just as an example. We'll come to you first and say, hey guys, do you want to take this opportunity? It's 12 months where we go. So you will have the opportunity before anyone else to come in on that. And I think that's really important to understand on that, Dal. And then the second piece is that obviously this is what we call the development engine. So I think we've got the little model here. This piece here, this is the development engine. And then we've got the operational engine, which, development builds the space, it creates this great IP, gets people in there, creates the homes, but then the operational business then helps run that. It brings people together, brings the residents, brings the commercial, and that operates in its own right. We will create, we are right now building the operation vehicle. And as you can imagine, that operation vehicle has already got a pipeline because it's being fed by the development engine. And we will do a small raise on that to kick things off. But that has some great potential there. And again, the founding team will be the only public-facing people who will get an opportunity to purchase into that. So anything in the wider CoCity group, as a founding member and being part of this raise, you will get front row access to that. So hopefully that kind of explains things well enough, Dal.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you, Alex. So next question, with the focus on local authorities as a partner and many of these not having any money, can you elaborate on why you've chosen this route and the level of interest you've received from LAs? What benefits for both parties?
Pete, over to you, mate.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So first of all, the reason for wanting to partner with local authorities really became clear at the event that we talked about that Alex went to, when he was sharing what our model was, and at the same time it was being shared about this opportunity and these the net zero strategy from the government to create decarbonisation by 2050, or net zero by 2050. So councils, local councils, local authorities are under a huge amount of pressure to comply with this and to make not only existing buildings but also future buildings compliant with this. The existing buildings are the real problem, especially where they haven't got any money, and especially where in many cases it's larger companies that are moving out of the high street, they're moving out of the city centre, and these assets are being left. They're not able to do anything with them because they don't have the money to do things with them, and other people aren't buying into them either. So that provides an opportunity for us to present our model to them, and for them to see a way to revitalise those particular areas, to revitalise those buildings, and to bring them up to scratch, so as they're compliant with with the guidelines that everyone's being put under pressure to meet. So that created a whole bunch of interest, and a lot of discussions earlier in the year, which we've then been able to follow up with, and many of these are now turning into real opportunities where the councils have got assets. In some cases they've got some money as well, in other cases they haven't, but they have assets. They want to be able to get the benefits of our model, which is both social and economic, the benefits of this model. So by focusing on community, by focusing on people's well-being, we improve overall health, and that reduces the impact on national health, and the healthcare system in those local areas. But at the same time, with the co-working spaces, with the housing spaces, with the live, work, play model that we're creating, it's also bringing in direct revenue in the form of rents and taxes for the local authority, and additional revenue, indirect revenue to the local community, to the local area, essentially creating a circular economy. So the benefits are huge for both parties, because it gives us an audience, it gives us access to a really, really good pipeline in many of the cities that we're already targeting.
Yeah, exactly. I think we touched on that. There's a lot of meta trends that's going on, which are really pushing this community-centered flexible living product to the fore. As I mentioned, this is a unique category of real estate that we've invented ourselves. It might sound a little bit bizarre, but look at search engines before Google come along. No one knew what a search engine was, and there was only really two that dominated it, from Yahoo and Google. It's the same with a lap, your personal computer. There's only a few that really dominate, that industry. So we wanted to be that first advantage mover and really benefit from that and create this new space. And some of the things that you see in there, this is all evidence from the focus groups that we've seen about why there's the value there. But also, just answer again to Dal, this is the same thing that local authorities need to work on, and we can create that value alongside them.
Great, thank you. That's all the questions that I've got here.
So I don't know if anyone else has got any questions. I've got nothing in. We've got one answered. Pete, I don't know if you've got anything from your side that that's worthwhile kind of mentioning or came up previously.
No, I mean, I think the biggest ones were the one we've just talked about. Why councils, why local authorities? What are the benefits for them? And I think the other one was just that we've heard a few times and that you've already answered, was the one about the opportunity to invest in in other elements and what kind of ownership essentially they're getting. Yeah,
and I mean, like, obviously today wasn't to go through the whole piece. You can see we've got financials in here. We've got the competition. It's a collaboration here. By the way, as far as we are aware, we are the only real estate company who does the community centre flexible living, mixed use, mixed tenure, that in the whole of the UK. I'm not going to say the world, but definitely within the UK. So we don't have anyone who can match that from a value perspective. But there's a lot of detail here that if you want to know more, obviously I put all my details there in the chat to everyone. You can send me an email, you can give me a ring, you can go on to Calendly and book a Zoom invite, or you can go on to the tranche, so click on that link. You can also click, or you can take the link here. Dal and Pete, I just want to make sure if you click that, it does take you there. So if you wouldn't mind testing that just before we leave, just to make sure. But you can do that and actually download the whole equity offer document front from back, which has been reviewed by sharing the FCA platform from Leo. And we've also got the financial projections, which you can go into more detail. Our CFO's put a whole video piece, talks you through that, and we can provide much more information on that as well. So if there is anything that's kind of missing that you would like to know as part of that investment journey, if this is something of interest, or even if you just have some ideas, some partnerships, and you want to be involved, please let us know. This is CoCity can mean so many things, but one of the big things we do like is collaboration. We don't believe in competition. We think together we can do a lot more. I was going to say damage, that's not the right way. We do a lot more value together.
Oh, good.
And good in business. So yeah, we're very much open to that.
So the link you just mentioned, Alex, that's actually in the chat. So if you want to get access to that, if you click into the chat, you'll see that link there. And
does it work? Because I typed it in. That was what I just wanted to make sure it worked.
Yeah, it worked for me.
Yeah, that's working fine. Yeah.
Okay, guys. So yeah, just as a summary, thanks again for coming here. Obviously, we're creating this new category of real estate. There's a potential investment opportunity of 7.4 times your money of your initial investment. So if you put 10,000 in, you're gonna get 74,000 back. You put 100,000 in, potentially 740,000 back. We've got dividends from year 4 plus, of 4 to 7.5%. You have the equity, the co-founders members club, which creates that front seat to be in equity position for all future deals, as well as all events that we hold in CoCity. And we've got that exit event baked in already, because obviously we realize that investors don't want to just have their money put in perpetually into a deal. So hopefully that comes across okay, guys. You understand, and we look forward to speaking to you shortly. Thank you very much for your time, and to Dal and Pete as well.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Look forward to speaking to you all. Bye.
Okay.